I've had diabetes for 46 years, and then yesterday I was really feeling bad about myself because I wish I could have got it 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, when a lot of this,
different times, different
yeah,
technologies. Yeah.
people used to guess my blood sugar before I put it in the machine.
Yep.
And to see the technology now, just it makes me, not that I want to guilt other diabetics, but you have no excuse.
Yeah.
It's so much easier now.
Welcome to T1 Trail Talks of the T1 Determined podcast. Today, on our first episode, Chris Roome sits down with Tom Perry, an avid hiker from New Hampshire whose experience with type 1 diabetes spans decades of change. From a time when diabetes technology was far more limited to today's world of continuous glucose monitors and advanced insulin delivery systems. Tom has witnessed firsthand how both medical innovation and public understanding of type 1 diabetes has evolved. We'll talk about the improvement in diabetic management technology, his perspective on how life with T1D has changed over the years, and his overall experience with our first trip of Project Insulnation. And now, our conversation between Chris Roome sitting with Tom Perry.
Hey everyone, I'm sitting here with Tom Perry up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. We just got done with our first Project Insulnation trip, and I want to give Tom a chance to tell the world his type 1 diabetic story and get any kind of insight and information out there. So welcome, Tom. Why don't you start? Just tell everyone who you are, where you're from, when you got diagnosed, and tell us about what it was like.
Thanks, Chris. My name's Tom Perry. I'm currently from New Hampshire. I was originally from Massachusetts. I was diagnosed in 1980, and just kind of, it seems like the Stone Ages now. When I look at the newfangled stuff that we have now, and it makes life easier generally.
Yeah. And
sometimes it makes life more challenging. But yeah, that's really my story. I was diagnosed. I was 13 years old. Kind of changed my life. I really did go from being, the class president. Really made me feel inadequate, kind of second rate. And I've always kind of struggled with that. And, it's always been something that I've always tried to overcome, is that, we're just like everyone else, except for when we're not.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about having diabetes in the late 80s and early 90s, like growing up with the, I guess, lack of technology that we have now. What was it like being diabetic then? What did you have to do, and what was available to you?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's back then, you don't know what you didn't know then. If to do a blood sugar, there was no such thing unless you went to the doctors. We would test our blood sugar using the Clinitest test. We would test our urine, which was, now it seems like we're talking about the 1500s. Just you would actually drop urine and drop a tablet in there and compare it to a color on a wall chart. And then we had two types of insulin, long acting and short acting. And when I was first diagnosed, it turned out we had animal insulin. It wasn't even made of, it wasn't human insulin like we have now. So you used to have to take a lot more volume, a lot more, there was no rhyme or reason as to really what you were doing. There was no control.
It's absolutely crazy to think about, like, especially now with all the data and everything that we track and watch now, and all the technology that's available to us. It's kind of like a guessing game back then. Like, you just hoped that you did the best that you could do, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, and then when I was within months of my diagnosis, we discovered that I was allergic to beef insulin, and I had to wait months for them to prove that that's exactly what it was. And then I went on purified pork. But I mean, it really was. I mean, looking back now, I forget, just how good we have it now, and as bad as it still is. But as far as the disease itself, it's insidious. It's always at you. It's always with you, and it's never asleep. And you really have to stay on top of it. That's always been true. But I mean, back then, I feel, I think I said this earlier, I've had diabetes for 46 years. And then yesterday I was really feeling bad about myself because I wish I could have got it 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, when a lot of this,
different times, different technologies. Yeah.
I was a participant in the DCCT study, which was diabetes complications and control test. And, they end up stopping that 10-year test after 2 years because they realized like the control subjects were harming them by keeping this study going. And luckily I was on the other side with intensive insulin therapy, which now it seems like such a no-brainer that taking intensive insulin therapy, but that was still before blood glucose monitors. I remember my first one, you'd plug it into the wall, you'd wait 2 minutes for it to do its dance and boot up. You would then have to do a control solution. You would wait, then you'd do your blood sugar. I mean, it was a process. It just, and then, having a battery powered one that you could travel with. When I went through college, people used to guess my blood sugar before I put it in the machine.
Yep.
And to see the technology now, just, it makes me, not that I want to guilt other diabetics, but you have no excuse.
Yeah.
It's so much easier now.
Yep. I agree. Everything is at your fingertips now.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you can't hone in your control and live whatever kind of life you want to live.
Yeah.
You had, you kind of touched upon before that I want to go back to about the mindset around the diagnosis and being a diabetic in your earlier years. You had used the word inadequacy. And I know that that's something that I can relate to because I felt different, not necessarily an outcast or in a bad way, but there was just always something about me that felt different growing up as a type 1 diabetic. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your experience, your mentality around diabetes and what you went through, and maybe after living for 46 years with it, give some advice to someone now who may be newly diagnosed and trying to navigate those waters?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was 2 words: loving ignorance. A lot of people saw me as different. They sought to protect me from diabetes.
Yeah.
And I lived on Cape Cod. I used to sail all the time, and then I became a diabetic, and they didn't want me to sail. It's like, well, what do you mean? So suddenly I'm different. I can't do that. And finally, I would just go out and sail and do my own thing. And as I would be sailing back in, my father was on the bridge with binoculars.
Watching
And it was that oversight that you have as a child anyway, but going through your teens, like that kind of, like now they're looking over my diabetes as well as just me as their child. And that was tough. It caused a lot of animosity between me and my father, especially. My mother had some experience with type 1 diabetes because her father was a type 1 diabetic, diagnosed in post-war. So I think I went off track of your question.
It's all good. You were talking about the inadequacies, but I wanted you to bring it full circle, kind of talk to someone who's newly diagnosed now from your experience of 46 years with type 1 about that mentality shift that you need to be happy as a type 1 and live a full life compared to that inadequate, poor me, negative mindset that a lot of times we do the dance around as type 1.
Yeah, when I was first diagnosed, the first thing that came to my mind was White Sox, a cane, and eventually I'm going to be blind. That was what diabetes was in 1980. I went to the Joslin Clinic, and there's another change in our healthcare. I was there for like 3 months. That's how America used to be. And my endocrinologist did admit that they tried shock and awe. Everybody we hung out with were generally adults, and they were all blind. And I came across my first insulin pumps that were on wheeled carts, that were infusion sets, not just
the
not
big
cannulas
back in the day.
Oh yeah, and it was crazy. And then education was different too, though, because we would sit there in a room full of diabetics, and then the nurses would come in and prick our ear and take our blood sugars and just kind of keep going down. So
pricking your ear is interesting. I've never heard of that.
Oh, no, that's a good one.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
Ears bleed well, and they don't scar as bad as fingers.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's a change. But yeah, and as far as the inadequacy, just there was always like, well, can he participate in this? Probably not. Yeah, he has diabetes. And it really, after a while, after too many no's, and you start thinking no.
Yeah.
And just it limits you what the experiences you want and the things you want to do, the things you feel you can do, and it does. You internalize them. Like, I'm broken. I can't do this because of me.
Repeated, learned, limited beliefs.
Yeah.
Eventually becomes your reality if you listen to it long enough.
Yeah, I mean, and thankfully, I had the, I guess the willingness and the know-how to try and challenge that. And again, that goes back to the animosity that I mentioned with my father. Just he became a diabetic when I became a diabetic. But and again, it was all based on love. But that's part of the hardest thing about being a parent.
Yeah.
Which I know, just is telling a child no. Speaking of which, in the year 2000, my daughter became a type 1 diabetic. No amount of guilt there, and I've always tried to raise her based on who I am today, not who I was when I was diagnosed, with limited success. But, and she's, that's where I would say I've said to her repeatedly, and that's why I've said to people who have either recently been diagnosed or have been diagnosed in this modern era of CGMs and pumps, there's no excuses anymore. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. Diabetes is not going to hold you back.
Yeah. And that's what I always tell people. Diabetes will always be with you, but it just takes more preparation and preparing to get through whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's hike a mountain, backpack the Appalachian Trail, run a marathon, anything to that nature you can still do.
Right.
You just have to take the extra steps in preparing to give yourself the best chance of success while you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I still have a pocket full of glucose tablets and goo gels here.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So before we wrap up, I just want to shift back to our experience this weekend in the White Mountains. I know you were a key component in helping us really keep this weekend what we hoped it would be. And the weather didn't really cooperate in the original plans, and the backup plans and the backup plans all got thrown out. But I'd like to hear what you enjoyed about this weekend being with Project Insulnation on our first trip, what you didn't really enjoy about whether it was logistically on the trail, how things were handled, and what you think could be done better moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I had the advantage of this being in my backyard. So that was very much ideal. Just these are the mountains I hike all the time. We were here in my mountains, and that's one of the reasons why I reach out to you so many times to make sure that this was going to be a safe, that everyone could actually do the hikes.
Yeah,
and that we're going to be safe. And if there's anything, I think that maybe more communication. Just I do think we should have had more calls.
Okay.
Just because you don't want someone who is being silent to stay silent.
Yeah.
And that's I think there was probably some of that too. Well, then it turned out that it was her wrong number, but so that's a different story.
Yeah, backstory. I had the wrong phone number for one of our participants. That's why she was silent.
But no, I mean, I think it went really well. Just I think, honestly, I think Pemi Loop may have been bigger than what could have been done.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest things to ever have to do is vet participants. Either because they think they can, they're lying, or they really can. But then you also don't want to end up with a group of people who can't, and on the same hike.
Yeah.
But that's I don't know the answer to that. But it's being a type 1 diabetic hiker can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
Type 1 diabetes doesn't mean a lot of things, but being a hiker can mean a lot of things. Just are you a recreational flat, do you snowshoe on golf courses or?
Yeah.
So that's, and this is different than a lot of people are used to. Just the whites are the whites, and this weather in New England can change. So, I mean, really just the project manager in me, you have to have contingency plans. But I think I had a great time. I'm hoping everyone who flew here had an equally good time.
Yeah, we'll find out because they're all coming up on this here.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah.
All right, Tom. I just want to thank you for hopping on here and giving us a little glimpse of what it's been like to live with type 1 for 46 years. And
it's been a while.
Before we cut, do you have any last words you want to say to any of our listeners, type 1?
I have to be like Wilfred Brimley. Do your blood sugar. Do it often. You know,
All right.
you have no excuse. Just there's no reason why not to, and take care of yourself. It's really the world is yours. You just have to take care of it.
Thanks for coming.
I had a great time.
Thank you for joining us with Chris Roome and Tom Perry on our first episode of T1 Trail Talks. For all our content, please visit t1determined.net. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, and on Facebook and YouTube at T1 Determined. Please also like and subscribe, and you can leave up to a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Until next time, keep pushing your limits. I hope this helps. Stay strong, stay determined. T1 Determined.